Coming up on iOS Today, Dan Moren joins me so that we can talk about what's new in iOS 17.2. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today with Mikah Sargent and Dan Moren, episode 683, recorded Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. What's new in iOS 17.2? This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Mylio. Mylio Photos is a smart and powerful system that lets you easily organize, edit, and manage years of important documents, photos, and videos in an offline library hosted on any device. Check out their limited-time holiday gift bundle for a 25% discount on Mylio Photos Plus at mylio.com/twit25. And by CacheFly, delivering rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Join CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Your website visitors will love CacheFly's lag-free video loading, hyper-fast downloads, and friction-free transaction processing. Learn how to get your first month free at cachefly.com/twit. Hello and welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, watchOS, iPadOS, tvOS, HomePodOS. Look, it's a show where we talk about operating systems from Apple, but more importantly, how to make use of those operating systems on those devices that you purchase from Apple so that, you're making the most out of this thing you spend a lot of money on. We want to make sure that you know about the apps that are out there, the services, the settings, the features, everything in between. And I am thrilled this week to be joined by a special guest host. Oh, I should note, I am Mikah Sargent, and our special guest host this week is Dan Moren. Welcome back, Dan.
Hey, it's good to be here, Micah. I'm looking forward to our little jingle about what's new in iOS 17.2.
There's the singing. I appreciate it. It's always important to get a little bit of singing in. So what we're talking about today, Apple just released iOS 17.2, as well as a few other operating system updates, including tvOS, iPadOS, HomePodOS, and even macOS got an update. And with that came some new features. It's not a super feature-packed release. This is a point update, meaning that it's not an entire number. It hasn't gone from 17 to 18, but instead has gone from 17.1 to 17.2. And the first thing that Apple sort of put in the release that I think is the big thing is something that was announced at WWDC, at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. So at that conference, Apple reveals every year the next version of the operating system and what new features are going to be a part of it. And one of those was an app called Journal. That app has now been released in iOS 17.2. Now, I have to say, when Apple first revealed that Journal was going to be one of the apps coming in iOS 17, I was pretty pumped about it. And not maybe on the face of it, it is an app that is there to help you create journals, to kind of talk about what's going on in your day or what's going on in your week or your month. And it works with something called the Journaling Suggestions API, which gives developers the ability to say, hey, the thing that you as the user are doing in my app might be something that you want to write about in the Journal app. So for example, the App of the Year winner, which was AllTrails, think about how AllTrails could, when you log a hike in the AllTrails app, then later that day you could get a prompt saying, hey, would you like to write about that AllTrails hike that you took earlier? One example. But I was excited, not just because it was a journaling app, because I'll be honest with you, not very good at journaling, but more for the fact that I felt this was going to be a way for Apple to surface and reveal the attention that is being paid to your activities on your iPhone, if that makes sense. So that because as you're using your device, there are settings to turn this on or turn this off for Siri. Siri is kind of the blanket term for not just the little voice you talk to, but also the AI smarts that are in it. And so because of that, and sometimes it's not very smart and starts thinking that you're talking to it on the computer, which is what just happened, but that it is paying attention to how you use different apps. That's how it then suggests that at specific times or in specific locations, maybe this is the app that you want to use. So when I, for example, we can show this on screen, swipe down from my home screen to launch the spotlight area, you can see that up at the top, I've got Siri suggestions. So it is aware that of where I am, what I'm doing, and what I typically do at this time, and then serving up apps based on that. Now, I will say that Siri's not incredibly smart, because you'll notice that in the top right corner is the phone app, which is an app I very rarely launch. But outside of that, this just about makes sense for the apps that I might be using at this given time. And so all of the smarts that kind of play in the background, journaling I felt was going to be the place, the journal app was going to be the place where we would see that. So it would go, I know that today you visited a restaurant that you don't normally visit. Now you're back home, and you took some photos while you were there, and you also listened to this song that you haven't listened to in several years on your way home, and then use all of that to kind of prompt you. Unfortunately, in the early days of this, because I did test it when it was still in beta, I've not seen this. And I want to ask you, Dan, kind of what was your impression and your reaction upon first learning about it at WWDC? And then where are you now in terms of the journal app?
I mean, I've toyed with keeping journals over the years for various, throughout a little bit of high school and college. I was sort of a very irregular journal keeper. And then there's been some events, like I traveled abroad a bit in college, and I took some cross-country trips when I was younger, and those were like good opportunities to contribute to a journal. But I think in all those years I filled like one journal, and when I finished it, I was like, cool, I'm done. That's my story. So the idea of having a journal app on the phone seemed on the face of it to be something where it's like, well, this makes a lot of sense. It's already got access to all your stuff. And it seems like it would be a really good way to prompt people and like encourage them to journal. Because I know there are a lot of arguments for journaling being a good habit to have. It can be helpful with dealing with, stress or anxiety or any number of things. My mother is a big journaler. My grandfather was a big journaler. But that was sort of where I went into it, thinking maybe this is something that will encourage me to journal more and be more introspective. My experience with it during the beta was a little less compelling. And it's hard to put a finger exactly on why. I do think it took a little while, I think as you were suggesting, for the journaling suggestions to actually get populated to the point where I had things in there that were relevant to what I was doing. It will surface both more recent things as well as sort of pick stuff out of your history at times too. Like it will pick up, there seems to be some integration with photos memories. And that's a feature I end up comparing this a lot to, which is I do think Apple's Photos app is really good at surfacing those memories, finding collections of photos and building them into albums or movies or stuff like that, or surfacing them in your photo library to show you things that you might have forgotten. And the virtue of that to me, to a large degree, is its automatic nature, right? It gets done for you in the background. You open the app and there you go. Whereas journaling obviously is something intended to be a little bit more of a jumping off point. So I think over the course of the several weeks of the beta period, I put in about nine journal entries as I was trying things out. And I think there's both a lot in here and in some ways not enough. You see some workouts, there's some location data and some obviously photos and videos. I find it an interesting choice to integrate things like music and podcasts, which are a big part of this, because it's not something I often find myself getting introspective about. Like I'm not thinking to myself, oh, I listened to this song today while I was out on a walk, and now I have thoughts about that song or something like that. Like I get the idea. It's sort of like a soundtrack, or sort of puts you in that mood again. But I guess I end up feeling very much like this process is not for me, and I struggle with this process. So it's something where I don't find myself thinking like I want to spend the time typing out on my little iPhone thoughts and then go back or look later or never look later. I don't really know. It's somewhat strange. It's a very interesting idea. I think the most positive part of it is the fact that it's built on an API and that API is available to apps. I want to clarify one thing, which is the API as designed is for apps that are also journal apps or want to access journaling suggestions. It is not, to my knowledge, for apps that are like, hey, here's a thing that happened that I want to give to you the journaling suggestions, except unless it uses sort of the built-in iOS frameworks already. So, for example, anything that logs a workout to the health app will be available because it's in the health app. But if you have an app that you listen to podcasts in, for example, that's not the Apple Podcasts app, that information will not show up in journaling suggestions because there's no way for that third-party app to be like, hey, they listened to this podcast. Perhaps they'll want to write something about it later. So I think that potentially hampers some of its uptake, but I think the bigger challenge overall is just some people like to journal and some people don't. And that already sort of limits your field for who this is something that they might be interested in.
Indeed. I'll show it briefly here. So this is the Journal app. And when you don't receive a prompt, if you just hop into the Journal app, you can hit the plus button at the bottom of the screen. And this will pop up some different options. Now, again, because this just came out, as a feature in iOS and as an app in iOS, you're not going to see suggestions from third-party apps because those have not had the opportunity to do so. So you'll see, for example, it has cataloged a recent trip that I took, and there are multiple photos for that trip as well as a location. Also, my different workouts, so exercise. If I still don't quite. I understand if it was an exercise that was a hike or if it was a run maybe or a walk. But my regular workouts are not that. And so I don't really
stationary biking, something you don't want to really reflect on.
I don't really want to talk about lifting weights because there's nothing to really add there. But it's interesting that is an option. Again, for some people, maybe while you're on your runs, that's the time whenever you're free to think about stuff. I like to just not think about anything if I can help it. This doesn't hurt. I'm not in any pain at all. This is great. Then there are some prompts for things like, this has nothing to do with something that is smart. It's not that it's picked up on something you've done, but instead it's just a reflection. So what's the kindest thing anyone has said about you recently? And so you can tap into that and, write what the kind of thing is that someone said. And then also there are photo memories. So although it is miscatalogued Mizzy, which is understandable there on the left, as Henry, who is in the other photos, I could write about that as well. You can also just choose to write a new entry in general, and you just start writing. You can add different things like those recommendations that you've had. You can add photos. You can take a photo live. So once you give it access to the camera, then I could take a photo and add that to the journal and be able to write, okay, I was, doing iOS today and it was a unique episode because Dan Moren was here. I could add a location. And so in this case, I would say, yes, I was inside Twit. And then also what I like, although I want them to improve upon this feature, is audio transcription. This is the one way that I think they could get me to journal, is if those audio messages that you write in would also be transcribed. So I messed that up by calling it audio transcription. It is not currently audio transcription, but if I could do what is, it's a voice memo. If I could do an audio journal that gets transcribed into text there and pops up as text, then I think I would like that. I understand that I could hit the button in the bottom right corner to literally transcribe, but there's something different about that. It's not the same. Like I want the audio journal, I want it to stay as an audio journal, but then below it, the text appears that has what I wrote in. I think that would be cool. And then you can change the date. So if, for example, you're writing about something that happened on a Monday and you have photos of it from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, then you could choose to just have it be for Monday, and then afterward add it to your journal. And then it's stored there. You can go back to it whenever you want. and access those different journals that you have left. So interesting app. I think it has room to grow. I'd like to see it grow. And as far as its comparison to third-party journaling apps, I think there are plenty out there that do a whole lot more, some that do a whole lot less, but is exactly what people need. And so completely understandable that this app is not necessarily for everybody. And I think more than anything else, I want to see Apple really surface and show how aware the operating system is of the different things that you're doing in a way that's helpful and kind of gives you access to that quantified self, so to speak. All right, let's move on because there are still some more features to talk about. One thing that Apple actually called out on its site, it's apple.com/newsroom. And on that page, Apple talked about how Siri can now log and kind of gain access to. It's down one more. Yeah, there you go. So what's odd about this is it was just a quick little thing, but basically Siri is able to gain access to and also log different health data. So I could say, how does my move ring look today? Did I close my exercise ring? How much have I slept this week? What's my blood glucose level? I can also log stuff. So, hey, I took my 8 a.m. medication. Hey, my blood sugar is 122. Hey, record my blood pressure as 118/76. That I actually find quite compelling because up to this point, the different numbers that I've logged that I've had to log independently, I've used some sort of automation to do it. So, for example, I have a blood pressure monitor that when I first moved to California, I was needing to log my blood pressure regularly for reasons. And so I had a little NFC sticker that I stuck to it. And what it would do is when I scanned the NFC with my phone, it would pop up, ask me systolic and diastolic, and I was able to put that information in and it would log it into the health app. With this, you don't even have to do all of that. So I could do the blood pressure and then immediately go to you know who and say, put that in for me. I think that's quite compelling. I think, particularly for folks who maybe have lower mobility and are able to log their blood sugar, for example. So this is pretty cool.
It's just convenient too for Apple does not make that system terribly easy. The health app is not the most friendly place to go as a data input source. So similar to you, I was doing a thing where I'd I should weigh myself more regularly. And I made a shortcut on iOS to say okay, I hit a shortcut and it pops up, what was your weight, and you enter it. And then it sort of drops it in the health app. I even had mine do a little average, okay, here's your average over the last 6 weeks or so. But the fact that I had to do that in order to make a thing that was more friendly than going into the health app and trying to figure out, okay, where's my weight location? And then where do I enter stuff? I think Siri is a way to make that a lot friendlier and to potentially just encourage people to do this more, right? Or not just, as you say, I think it does apply a lot to people who have maybe mobility issues or frustrations using devices, but also just encouraging a lower barrier to entry for people who may not otherwise, I don't want to go through this whole process of logging. So all you have to do is talk to your phone, tell your phone one thing, you're done, you're move on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great feature. I'm surprised that it was not necessarily part of what was there already. But now that it's there, it makes it much simpler. And importantly, when it comes to the Apple Watch, it will only work with the Apple Watch Series 9 and the Apple Watch Ultra 2. That is because it requires on-device processing to be able to do this. And that is, from Apple's perspective, a privacy thing. They don't want you sending your health data to need to be logged on the server side to be able to put this information into your health app. So it requires devices that are able to do that on-device Siri processing to be able to log this. So Apple Watch Series 9, Apple Watch Ultra 2, and then many an iPhone and many an iPad. Basically, if it can run iOS 17 or iPadOS 17, it is able to do this. Cool. That's the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, third generation later, iPad Pro 11 inch, first generation later, iPad Air, third generation later, iPad Mini, fifth generation later, and the iPad 8th generation and later, as far as iPads go. So I think this is great. Glad to see that added. The other thing I'll mention quickly is a new feature called iMessage contact key verification. Now, this feature was announced actually a year ago, December 7th, 2022, so just a little over a year ago, as something that Apple was going to be adding to iMessage. And what it does is it gives you a little bit more certainty that you are indeed speaking to the person to whom you hope to be speaking, or to whom you intend to be speaking. So what it does is it requires kind of a handshake between two people who are communicating. And if a device that is not kind of logged with this iMessage contact key verification is suddenly messaging you, you will see a little alert in iMessage that says an unrecognized device may have been added to Jenny's account. And so then you kind of have that understanding that perhaps you will be speaking to someone who you are not intending to speak to. Apple very much positions this as a feature not necessarily for your everyday user. In fact, it says, quote, now with iMessage contact key verification, users who face extraordinary digital threats, such as journalists, human rights activists, and members of government, can choose to further verify that they are messaging only with the people they intend. Then they even go on to say that, the vast majority of people don't really need this, but it is there for the folks who do. So once you have iMessage contact key verification turned on, then you do get that automatic alert to let you know, oh, something has been added that is not recognized and you may not be talking to who you think you are. And users can compare a contact verification code in person on FaceTime or through another secure call. So you can see that the numbers line up and that you are indeed speaking with the person you are trying to. I think it's a great feature for those who need it. I think it's not a feature that most people need to even worry about or enable, but it is there now in iOS 17.2. All right, let us take a quick break before we come back with even more new features in iOS 17.2. I do want to tell you about our first sponsor this week. It's Mylio. Now, we have become big fans of Mylio photos here at Twit, and right now, very excited to say that for a limited time, Mylio is offering a holiday gift bundle, which means it's the perfect time to get started. The holiday gift bundle includes 1 full year of Mylio Photos Plus, easy-to-use editing software Radiant Photo, and premium membership to the photographer community platform Viewbug. Mylio Photos recently dropped the year's biggest update, offering even more customization, accessibility options, and control to how you handle your digital libraries. Mylio Photos Plus offers even more by letting you connect all your devices and take full advantage of the new Shared Albums and Spaces tools to share your media with customized control and privacy. I love that Mylio Photos lets me have a library that is pulling in all of my photos from wherever they happen to be. If they're on a DSLR, if they're on my phone, if they're in Amazon Photos, Google Photos, Apple's own iCloud photo library, if they are from Instagram. I mean, it's pulling all of my photos into one place, so I know I've got them. And if any of those places go down or change, doesn't matter, because I've got local versions of all of those photos. And it's so easy to search for stuff too, because of the great AI tagging that takes place with your photos. on device, by the way. This is an on device tagging system. It's great. Spaces, which is one of the newer features, lets you sort and organize files into subject specific views. So you can have subjects like family, work, personal, and private, and create custom spaces for whatever you want. This opens the door for more productive collaborations with your team, or automatically sharing photos with family members signed into the account. And with remote control, you have full control over what's visible and which tools are available on each device connected to your account, no matter who it is. This is perfect for work portfolios, managing project assets, and even personal organization. You can even use Mileo Photos for free on one device. Get 25% off your first year of Mileo Photos Plus today for a limited time. Check out the holiday gift bundle for even more great deals by going to our special URL. That's mileo.com/twit25 for your 25% discount. That's MYLIO.com/twit25. So download Mileo Photos Plus for free right now at mileo.com/twit25. And of course, we thank Mileo for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, back from the break, and now it's time to talk about a new video feature for iOS, and this is specific to the iPhone 15 Pro. Apple again mentioned that eventually they were going to allow for a spatial video capture on iPhone, again, specific to the iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max. And it would use the main and the ultra wide cameras on these devices while they're in landscape orientation to capture spatial video that can then be viewed on Apple's upcoming Apple Vision Pro. That device is set to hit sometime early next year. We're creeping ever closer to early next year, but Apple's definition of early next year is often different from the one we might expect. In any case, you can capture this video on your device. What it captures is 1080p video at 30 frames per second in standard dynamic range. And it will then keep, I think most importantly, the reason why these videos are smaller and they're in standard dynamic range is because they would end up being pretty big files otherwise, but they're also done in a way that kind of compresses thanks to HEVC, which is Apple's sort of compression method for these photos. It is, I've played around with this a little bit, and let's see if I can't show. Ooh, I don't think I can because I would have to show it in landscape, and I don't know that we have. Okay, so let's see if it will let me AirPlay while I try to record video. So I switched to video, and I down in the bottom right corner, you will see the little Apple Vision goggles. And right now it's crossed out. Now, if I tap on that, that will turn on the Apple Vision. And notice in the top left corner, if you're listening to this, I'll just describe it. In the top left corner, when I have it turned off, I have it at 30 frames per second, 4K resolution. When I tap on it, it switches from 30 frames per second, or from that to 30 frames per second, HD resolution. Simply tapping on the record button will record this video. You will get little prompts that come up that kind of give you tips on how you should be moving. And so it'll say, like, get closer or move farther away. And that, of course, depends on if you're kind of trying to shoot something close that's a subject or something that's far away. So here, this is doing a pretty good job of not needing to do too much. I shot a little, I think it was just a coffee mug or something like that on a table, and it was a little bit more picky about how I was shooting the video. But when I finish, the video is available to me, but of course, it's not going to appear in that special format. I'm not going to be able to view it on my iPhone in some sort of weird 3D view. It looks normal and is only visible as it stands by way of Apple Vision Pro. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this, Dan. You know, if you plan on shooting a bunch of videos in this format so that you can view them on your own Apple Vision Pro headset.
Tempting as it may be, it's something I've played around with just a little bit. Obviously, there's no way now without none of us out here have Apple Vision Pro, so none of us can tell what it will look like in the headset. I think there's a big challenge in trying to identify the moments that most benefit from the use of spatial video. I've had some friends who've talked about recording things, and I also know some folks who've taken apart some of these video files to try and view them on other headsets and sort of see what things look like. I'm sure Apple will have its own secret sauce in trying to figure out how it's going to interpret those things and display them, but we don't really know right now what will end up being sort of the ideal kind of material to capture and view in this spatial video format. So the trade-off is obviously, as Mikah was saying, that you have to deal with less resolution, and that could mean you're making a sacrifice in terms of things that you're recording that you may never end up watching in spatial video, but now you won't get the opportunity to get in the most high quality you can get with normal video. So for me, I'm not sure that it's something that really bears much use right now, because I don't have a good sense of whether or not this will be something as like, oh, I'm going to be reliving this moment in spatial video for years to come. But I think once the Apple Vision Pro gets out in the wild and people have more opportunities to start capturing spatial video and saying, hey, this looks really great in spatial video, this is the kind of thing that you want to use this for, we'll have a much better sense of what is the ultimate virtue of this. And obviously, as Apple improves its tech, we'll have, I imagine there'll be less and less trade-off. Capacities get larger, formats get more, compressed or more efficiently used, and so there may come a time where you don't have to make that choice. And perhaps even like Apple has done with portrait mode now, it'll be something you can do after the fact and say, hey, did you capture spatial data along with that video? Well, let me just watch it now, and I don't even have to worry about having toggled something on and off. So I think that's the future that we're sort of heading towards, but it's going to be a while before we get there. So in the meantime, you're going to have to sort of pick and choose and figure out, like, what is this moment a spatial video moment, or is this moment as much quality as I can possibly get moment?
Indeed. And even in the sort of the newsroom post, Apple's depiction of what the spatial video looks like wasn't very compelling. So obviously
right.
it's way different seeing it on
trying to show 3D in 2D is a sucker's game, right?
Yes, indeed. I mean, yeah, because here it just looks like it looks like you're just playing a video. Yeah, a window that has a video playing into it. There's not a whole lot of depth to it or anything like that. So it'll be interesting, though, when people get their hands on this, what they feel about it and whether, any of it was worth it. Was any of it worth it? Whether it's worth like taking the time to also capture it in that special format. All right, there are many other features. I'm just going to go through a few, and you feel free to share your reactions on them. There will be others that will kind of glance over, but one new feature is that there's, and I noticed this when I installed the beta of 17.2, when you're playing music, it really draws you to pressing a favorite button, and hitting that little star to say I favorited this will then display the music you favorited in a favorites playlist. So you are able to listen to favorite songs which come from your favorites that you listen to. Also, and I think this is a big one, if we can show my phone here. So one thing that I've heard people ask about quite a bit is, how do I change the sound for notifications on my phone? And when they're saying that, they're not talking about notifications for messages, which you can change, and notifications for, your phone ringer, which you can change, but instead notifications for apps that don't have their own special notification sound. And up to this point, with iOS 17, there was not the ability to do so. Now, when you tap on sounds and haptics, if you scroll all the way down under the area that has the sounds for the different alerts and new mail, etc., there's a default alerts option. So yes, you can change the default alert sound now, so that, again, apps that aren't making use of some sort of special sound that they might have, you can say, this is the sound that I want to play for all of the apps that haven't specified. I also, in messages. One feature that I think I remember getting some applause at WWDC as we were sitting there in the audience was the something called the catch-up arrow. That is now in iOS 17.2. What that does is in a group message, or I think just in any conversation, if there are a bunch of messages that have come through, you will see a little arrow that you press, and it will take you back to where the conversation, where you were last part of the conversation. So basically, where the unread messages start is where you'll be able to go. So you can get caught up on the group chat, especially if it's very busy.
One thing that Apple doesn't really draw a lot of attention to that is new in iOS 17.2 is a thing that's been on the Mac in Messages for a long time. If you go into the iCloud settings and go to the Messages in the Cloud setting, which has now been renamed, there is finally a sync button for Messages in the Cloud on iOS. I don't think a sync button has ever appeared in an iCloud feature on iOS before. I guess Photos has one if you can tell it to start syncing now instead of waiting until it's plugged in the battery. But there is now, if you run into that problem, which I have run into even in recent last few days, where it's like, for some reason, your messages look out of sync between your iPhone and your iPad, or your iPhone and your Mac, you can now go in and manually tell it to sync. I hope that maybe it's just a placebo. I don't know. I could hit that button all day and not do anything. But I hope that Apple, this is a trend. Apple, give me sync buttons for iCloud Drive. We need that.
I want sync buttons everywhere.
Everywhere. Sorry. It's not a failure. It's not a failure, Apple. It's okay. Syncing is hard. Just give us a button.
Yes, I agree. There's also the ability to use the Wallet app to AirDrop passes to someone else. So if an example that I could think of is if you have 2 tickets to a show and they're both in your Wallet app, you can AirDrop one of those tickets to whomever is joining you for the show that you're going to see.
Do we jump over stickers in Messages and how?
Oh, is that something you want to?
Frustrating that is.
Yeah. So I know
I have some. I'm going to I'll continue to air my complaints in this particular segment. So Apple added finally the ability to add any sticker as sort of a reaction in Messages. However, Apple did not do, I think, what a lot of people expected, which is if you've ever used the tap back feature in Messages, which is the one that lets you add a handful of different reactions, hearts, thumbs up, thumbs down, exclamation points, etc. A lot of people have been looking for, hey, can we just add any emoji as a tap back? Kind of like you can do in Slack or WhatsApp or any variety of other messaging. And Apple said, we'll do it our way. And the answer is we give you stickers, which you can get from the same menu where you get tap backs, but you can pick from any emoji. However, the sticker picker is kind of clumsy. I don't think it's searchable, which is weird. And when you get a sticker, it like just haphazardly plops it on the message bubble, which is not as nice as the tapbacks, which are confined to this little tiny corner up there. And if you start getting too many stickers on a message, they cover the text of the message. Yeah, that's not great. I think this is much worse than if they had just added emoji to tapback. So I say, nice try, Apple. Back to the drawing board with that one.
Yeah, it's so annoying. Why can we not just do it? Like,
it's 2023. It's almost 2024, people. Come on. Any emoji is a tap back. Well, that's the platform I'm running on next year. You can vote for me in November.
Definitely voting for you. A couple of other things I'll mention. Again, I want you to go check out the 9 to 5 Mac article that has the full list of the different options. So I won't pull all of them from there. But what was it that you can now, with the telephoto camera on the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, when Anthony Nielsen and I recorded the iPhone 15 Pro review that we shot entirely on iPhone 15 Pro, one thing that we noticed in our testing and in capturing photos and videos was how slow and sometimes complete failure to have the telephoto camera focus on something. And so you would get close to it and it would focus in and then sort of focus out, and it would take forever, and sometimes it'd finally focus in, sometimes it just was not focusing. Apple did mention that 17.2 includes improvements to the camera system in general, but they specifically call out improved focusing speed on the telephoto camera itself. So I am delighted to hear that, and looking forward to testing more with that telephoto camera because, we had some issues with it early on. And then the last thing I'll mention is that if you have an iPhone 13 or an iPhone 14, the new Qi2 charging is going to be available to you as of iOS 17.2. So up to this point, the iPhone 15 was the device that supported Qi2 charging, which it's a new charging standard from the Qi. I can't remember if it's an alliance, but the Qi standard, Qi2 introduces magnetic connectivity so that it aligns the charging pad better. It's like MagSafe, but not from Apple. And so with those Qi2 charging options and that magnetic alignment, you're going to get better charging speeds because those coils are able to align better, which gives the ability to kind of more, it's more performant. It's not misaligned, which can cause the device to heat up and cause the charger to heat up, and it doesn't pass as much charge through whenever it's misaligned. So by using magnets to help you align, they're able to pump more charge into your device without worrying about heat being an issue. So great that 13 and 14 also get Qi2, and I know that a number of different companies, including Anchor, which we're fond of here on iOS today, do have some Qi2 products in the works. So, and I think in some cases already out. No, it's coming. They will have those soon. So you'll be able to do that magnetic alignment that is MagSafe without MagSafe. It's great because, if you have a non-MagSafe device and you want to do this sort of faster charging, you'll be able to do that as well. Anything from that list that you think is worth mentioning, or should we move on to the news?
I did think one of the interesting features that I've sort of lost my list here. There are a bunch of things in there that I think are really good. I think that in iOS 17.2, I'm sorry. I had my tab open and then my tab just disappeared. And with it, my brain went
Your brain was in the tab.
My brain was in the tab, and that was unfortunate because it's a bad place to keep a brain. I did want to mention it was the action button and the translate option, which I thought was kind of cool. There's now an option. One of the additional features that Apple talked about but hadn't been released in iOS 17 was the ability to use the action button for translation. So basically, you can hold down and it pops up like a little dialogue box, and as people are talking, you can then sort of get a translation. It's not quite real time. You still requires intervention, right? I mean, obviously there's the Translate app, which does have sort of a live conversation mode as well. But just the idea that I could be sitting there and quickly hit a button and get a translation of something is super cool, and almost as close to probably a universal translator, I feel like, as I'm ever going to get. So I really want the one where I can just have my AirPod in one ear and just have like live translation, like you're at the UN or something, and you're just constantly getting the live translation in your ear. That, as someone who travels frequently and loves other languages but doesn't speak as many of them as he wishes he did, that would be amazing.
I agree. It would be pretty cool. All righty. Well, I think it's time for us to take another quick break before we come back with the news, feedback, and, of course, our app caps to round out the show. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by CacheFly. For more than 20 years, CacheFly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. Serving more than 5,000 companies in more than 80 countries, organizations consistently choose CacheFly for scalability, reliability, and unrivaled performance. CacheFly's revolutionary storage optimization system ensures your holiday season remains jolly. This system creates private partitions dedicated entirely to your use, providing 100% bandwidth to ensure your content remains king. Keep your data and content primed, closer to your customers, maintaining optimal speeds and ensuring quicker content delivery no matter where your customers are. Let CacheFly supercharge your images and watch your web content soar to new heights of efficiency and performance. You can jump on board with CacheFly's smart image optimization service and give your audience the seamless, lag-free experience they deserve. By keeping your content on the edge, CacheFly ensures that your delivery speed is instantaneous. You can add CacheFly's video on demand VOD cache layer to your mix. You can witness a transformative reduction in loading times and say goodbye to the buffer and blues. Immediately and permanently drive your cache hit ratio to 100% using CacheFly's VOD cache. With CacheFly, you're going to get a variety of benefits. You'll get ultra low latency video streaming that will deliver video to more than 1 million concurrent users, lightning fast gaming that delivers downloads faster with zero lag, glitches, or outages, mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device, and it's the only CDN built for throughput, so you can deliver rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. Plus, flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need it, and discounts for fixed terms once you've settled in and you're happy. You can design your contract when you switch to CacheFly. And with CacheFly's elite managed packages, you will get the VIP treatment. Your dedicated account manager will be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when needed. Twit has been using CacheFly for more than a decade, and we wouldn't have it any other way. So jumpstart your journey with CacheFly with a complimentary first month, or give it a whirl with a free 5 terabyte account. Simply go to cachefly.com/twit. That's cachefly.com/twit. And we thank CacheFly for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, we are back from the break. Joining us this week is Dan Moren, who is subbing in for Rosemary Orchard. Dan Moren of sixcolors.com. And it's time for the news. We spoke in the first segment about what is new in iOS 17.2. There were some features that Apple announced at WWDC that are not in iOS 17.2 and have been delayed. One of those delays is something called collaborative playlists. Collaborative playlists in Apple Music is a feature that lets multiple people work together to create a playlist in Apple Music. So you can imagine that you go into Apple Music and you start to create a playlist for your upcoming holiday get-together. And then you invite your family to join that playlist and add their own music. And suddenly Baby Shark appears 3 times because you chose to add your sister who has 2 children who love Baby Shark. And so then you remove her from that list. Not speaking from any experience at all. No, I kid. But that feature is not out yet, and we don't know when it will be coming other than sometime in 2024.
Strange. I actually used it during the beta. My partner, Jason Snell at Six Colors, and I made a collaborative playlist. It worked fine. I have no idea why they pushed this one off. Maybe they just wanted to have something cool to headline the next 17-point release. The other one, which we're going to talk about in a second, I can understand why it got pushed off. It seemed to require some third-party buy-in, but it felt like collaborative playlists seemed pretty good, but maybe there were things in there that didn't quite work as they were supposed to yet.
Yeah, I'm curious about what's going on behind the scenes there too. The other feature that Dan hinted at, it's AirPlay in hotel rooms. So this was kind of quickly mentioned on stage and breezed past, but it was just, I think this is a great thing. It gives you more access to the in-room entertainment system where a QR code would appear on the screen. You scan the QR code, and then it lets you play your iPhone or your iPad, AirPlay it to that television. As Dan pointed out, it does require that the company needs to get that buy-in from these different hotels and resorts, and that also it needs buy-in from the folks who make these in-room hotels. As 95Mac says, LG, which is apparently the world's leading provider of in-room hotel TVs, said that it did work closely with Apple to make this feature possible, and that it would be coming to its line of pro-centric smart hotel TVs at some point in the future. As it stands, Apple says that this is something that's coming in 2024, so you will see that at that point as well. Outside of that, we have the features that we expected to see. Moving right along, this has kind of been a big story this week. On this past Thursday, I had Eric Mijakovsky of Beeper on the show, the founder of Beeper, and we talked about Beeper Mini. Beeper Mini is an app for Android that lets you basically connect to and use Apple's iMessage service from an Android device. A 16-year-old security researcher figured out a way to reverse engineer Apple's iMessage protocol such that any device could be registered to Apple's iMessage service and send and receive iMessages using that service. Beeper paired up with this 16-year-old security researcher to create Beeper Mini as an app that could do this. And then what Beeper provided to that mix was kind of a push notification service that would properly let an Android device know, hey, you've got a message from iMessage. And so those two things kind of work together to make this possible. Well, shortly after Beeper Mini was put out and during the, I think, 1 week free trial period, Apple found a way to block Beeper Mini messages from working. And you had a series of folks who were trying to send messages and they just were not sending. That then resulted in Beeper working around the clock to try and figure a way out to circumvent this block. And they seem to have done so, at least for a period of time. Beeper put out an update on a blog post update on December 11th, saying that it was it's able to work and that indeed you are able to use Beeper Mini to send and receive messages over iMessage. What is unclear is whether or not it's going to continue to exist or be blocked. Now, one other thing that I think is interesting is that Beeper is free to use. They're not turning on subscriptions for the time being, which I think is fair because if the service goes away, it's not cool that you're having to pay for something that, you know, you expected to get a month out of or whatever, and then it's only around for the next 2 days. I would love to hear your thoughts on this just in general, Dan, where things stand and what you think, especially given now that we've seen a few U.S. political leaders chiming in on this and talking about the antitrust concerns here.
Okay. All right. Let's break this down.
Let's break it down.
Starting from that, my dear Senator Elizabeth Warren, who I really enjoy and I have voted for and has, I think, generally really good intentions, but fundamentally I don't think understands the technology interplay here. What has happened with Beeper Mini is essentially they are conducting unauthorized network access on Apple's systems. And they're basically doing it by presenting credentials and saying these are valid credentials for this device where it's not the credentials for that device. So I don't think they have much of a leg to stand on, at least from a legal perspective, if Apple decided they wanted to get litigious. I think Apple has so far been satisfied to try and shut down the technological loopholes that they've been using in terms of saying like, hey, this is our product. You have reverse engineered it, and that is within your rights to do, but then turning it into a product to sell to other people is highly questionable. If you are a customer of this, I agree that you probably don't want to give them any money before you have some assurances that it's going to keep working. And I don't think Beeper Mini, I don't think there are any assurances they could provide to say we feel this platform is stable enough for long-term usage. They are engaged in currently a cat and mouse game with Apple, where Apple is probably going to keep, finding ways to revoke their credentials and turn that system off. And I guess my question is there such a high demand amongst Android users for this beyond sort of the novelty of it, that people are willing to put up with that kind of unreliability? I guess I'm skeptical. There are plenty of other solutions for cross-platform networking. So trying to sort of suggest this is an antitrust situation, I think also doesn't carry a lot of water. People could easily use WhatsApp. They could easily use Signal or Telegram or Line or any number of other messaging apps, Slack, Discord, etc. Yes, SMS is not great, I think we can all agree on that. And I think that's one reason Apple finally decided to cave and support RCS sometime next year. That will improve things a lot. But, people fixate, I think, a lot of times on the bubble color, which is kind of a ridiculous thing
so silly.
to fixate on. It's not meaningful. The meaningfulness is the experience. Is there an argument Apple should provide an iMessage app on Android? I think it would be a better experience. I think it would certainly allow them to control things. And I think that's the situation, and the ethos that Apple takes is they want to be in control of their products. And I can't blame them for that. I think it's far more likely they create an Android app for iMessage than that they ever create, say, an API that somebody else could use to access iMessage on Android. But I don't think either of those is particularly likely, to be honest. So, yeah, I think we're going to see some more back and forth with this. It ultimately depends how long Beeper wants to spend pursuing this. And the answer in the long term is I don't think that they probably have enough money to outplay Apple in the long game here. Apple can do as much. They can spend all the time they want, all the money they want on shutting down whatever loopholes Beeper finds. Sooner or later, Beeper's going to realize we are spending a lot of time and energy and, yes, money, and we're not getting a lot of return on it. So it would be hard to recommend it as something for a long-term solution for anybody.
Yeah, I'm watching this all very, very interested to see how this all turns out and, what the impact is ultimately here. According to, and of course, I want to make it clear, this is according to the company itself. And I will say, too, that Eric Mijakovsky, when he was on Tech News Weekly on Thursday, he did say that they had been working with this app developer since the summer. According to the company, Beeper Cloud, which is Beeper's service that existed long before Beeper Mini. Beeper Cloud is a tool that lets you basically have one place for all of your communications. So you could tie it to Slack, you could tie it to Instagram DMs, you could tie it to all of the different platforms that Dan was just talking about that are messaging platforms. Beeper Cloud had been using a very similar iMessage bridge as a way to do iMessage there. So it was almost like a test run, according to the company, where they had been using it this way to see it worked with Beeper Cloud before they launched Beeper Mini, that was just this kind of purpose-built single task app. Again, that's according to the company. Don't know if that's the case. The company also claimed by way of Mijakovsky that they had been working on this since the summer. So it is possible as far as that goes, that if they were working on it since the summer, they had implemented it with Beeper Cloud, saw that it was working with Beeper Cloud, and chose to release this separately. Given that the way that things worked in the past was having a Mac Mini or something somewhere that was on a server that was logged into iMessage and relaying your iMessages that way. So you kind of needed to separate and say, look, this does none of that. It's not done that same way. So again, it could be that Apple, now made aware of this by this huge press push, realized or was able to drill in and find how it was getting in and be able to block that. I don't know if you saw this. I didn't see a lot of talk about this specifically, but I noticed that there were quite a few tech influencers who wrote or talked or did video about Beeper Mini right as the Beeper Mini announcement came out, which led me to believe that there were like embargoes that some
I do think that's the case. I know Quinn Nelson over at Snazzy Labs had access prior to the public release because I know he got walked through some of the explanations of how it worked. I am sure that they were positioned it to make a big splash when it came out, and that makes sense. There was a claim, I think, when they did it, essentially like Apple can't easily undo this because of the way we're doing it. It will cause them more trouble and it will cause problems with older devices. That doesn't seem to be the case. And I think the trickiness here is, despite the claims, let's remember that Apple knows its systems way better than any third party who has reverse engineered it. So there may be things that are possible that these third parties do not know about. So that is the risk with a situation like this, is it's very hard for them to make assurances about how things will continue to work when they don't probably know the full architecture of this.
Yeah, very well put. All right, up next, we've got feedback and questions. Those feedback and questions up next. All right, it is time to see what feedback we have. The first question comes from Con, who writes, I hope this email finds you in good health. Oh, thanks, Con. I have recently switched from Android to iPhone 13 mini. On my Pixel phone, I could choose the volume level for my ringer/notifications and my alarm separately. The ring/notification volume was set to high, while the alarm was set to low, so as not to disturb my wife as I wake up early for work. That is so thoughtful. That's me editorializing, by the way. That's not Con. Con says, I can increase it every morning and then lower it at night, but it's not ideal. Is there a way I can set the volume for my alarm at a lower volume while keeping my ringer volume high? For now, I continue using my Pixel to wake me up. Thank you, Con. Con, I have to tell you, this is one of the frustrating things about iOS that continues to frustrate a lot of people. You are able to separately adjust the sound for media, music or apps or other things that are playing audio into your phone, and your alerts, notifications, etc. Those two can be separated. But what Apple includes in alerts, notifications, etc. are your alarms. So your alarms are part of that set of volume controls. So if you are hoping to give you the ability to have, say, a message notification play at a normal volume, but have your alarm play at a quieter volume, that itself is not possible. If what you're trying to do is maybe at night before you go to bed, you scroll through TikTok or you're watching a video or something, you can separate those two and say, I want that to be at a normal volume, but I want my alarms and everything else to be low. But it doesn't sound like you want that, because it sounds like you're worried that you'll wake up the next morning and forget to turn the volume back up. But I will quickly say that if you want to be able to basically control media and your alarms separately, you launch the Settings app, you go into Sounds and Haptics, and then underneath ringtone and alerts, you'll see an option that says change with buttons. And I currently have that turned off. If you turn that on, then the buttons on the side of the phone will change the volume of ringtones and alerts, as well as change the volume of media and other stuff that's playing through. Because I have this turned off, turning up or down the volume only makes a difference to music or other media that's playing through my device. You'll notice that ringtones and alerts does not change. That meter there, or that slider does not change based on me pressing the buttons on the side of the phone. So I thought about this, and I thought of a way that you might be able to get what you want, but it is kind of ridiculous and a little bit involved. What you could do is go online, or maybe there is a song that you already have in mind, but you could go online and, even on YouTube, but on any of these different audio sites that have different audio that you can download, find one that is an alarm sound that you like. And then what you'll do is you'll take that sound, whether it's, a song that you like, or it's an alarm ringing sound or a phone, whatever, and use an audio program to drop the volume of it. And then you'll add it to your iPhone's library. And then in your alarms, which I'll show you, we go to clock, we go to our alarm, and under sound, I can choose to have a custom song. So I would choose pick a song, and I'd go to my library, and I'd find that song that I created that could be, again, just a sound, but at a reduced volume, and choose that as the sound. So it would then play that sound every morning, and you have, with the file, actually made the sound quieter. So it's going to play back quieter, even though you're at full volume. Again, very involved, not an easy thing to do.
And suggest one that might be easier.
Oh, do you have a suggestion? Yeah.
I have an idea. I don't know. You can tell me, maybe you know about this too, but could you do a shortcuts automation to lower the volume at night before you go to bed, and just have it run automatically at like 11:30 or something, wherever you go to bed.
Yeah.
And then your alarm goes off, and then during the day, it returns it to normal level. Would that solve some of that?
That would absolutely.
I ask because
take
I also
care
have
of
a
it.
wife who gets up early sometimes, and I
You're
would
like,
like to solve this
can I
for my
create that?
own personal.
Yeah, so there are a number of ways to use shortcuts to do that. So you could have one that says every time I thwack my phone to the charger that it drops the volume, or every time I plug it in to charge that or exactly a sleep focus. When this sleep focus mode turns on, then I want you to drop the volume of my ringtones and alerts. So yeah, that is entirely possible using shortcuts. And we can certainly follow up to have a shortcut that does that. And that could be the solution to your problem. If you want to do it without involving shortcuts, you could try that, again, ridiculously sort of convoluted method of doing so. Or if it was just that you wanted to be able to listen to something at night and have the volume of your alarm be different, that is possible by just toggling off that change with buttons option. All right, this next one comes from Nate, and Nate does not have a question, but instead has some feedback. Nate writes, no question here, but a thank you for mentioning video chat from Apple TV. So Apple TV added FaceTime as an option to let you use your iPhone or your iPad as an external camera for your television so that you could do FaceTime calls. But then Zoom came out with an app for the Apple TV finally, and so you could also do Zoom calls over it. Nate writes, my father has medical issues that kept him from the family Thanksgiving celebration this year and sadly may keep him away from Christmas as well. But with my trusty iPhone 14 Pro and a GorillaPod paired to the Apple TV in my living room, we all got to have a 15-minute chat over FaceTime. Nate, that's wonderful. I'm so glad that you did get the opportunity that your father especially got the opportunity to see all of you. I'm sad that, the medical issues unfortunately kept him away, but it's great that this feature was able to be used, and definitely the holiday season is the perfect time, I think, for this feature. And also, Nate paid the pet tax. Nate writes, the pet tax is our pit bull / Dalmatian mix Waldo. He's almost 11 and loves to destroy toys and to sleep. So here's Waldo, a Dalmatian pit bull mix. I love the collar there too. And here he is sleeping next to his toys. He's sleeping on top of one of them, in fact. And some of them, of course, are just, oh my goodness, this is the best photo ever. Look at all of these toys that have been destroyed. See, this is the one thing. I have little dogs, and for the most part, love the fact that I have little dogs. They are very easy to maneuver. So if it's like, okay, it's time for you to move now, you just pick them up and move them over. And big dogs, not as easy. They can also knock you over, etc. But one thing that I love about big dogs is when it comes to toys, it seems more I get more satisfaction out of seeing a big dog with a toy because they actually play with it until it's destroyed and then you throw it away and you feel like it actually got some use. Whereas little dogs don't tend to easily tear through them, and so they just stay around. So we just have a lot of toys, and then every once in a while I'll look over and Henry has finally nibbled his way into the thing, and I'm seeing him go and pull out the fluff of his teeth and move it to the side, but it takes a long time. This looks like the sweet did you say a name? Petex is Waldo. It looks like Waldo is having a great time with all of his toys. He looks so sweet. I love his ears. So thank you, Nate, for paying the pet tax. And I'm so glad again that that episode was helpful to you. Alrighty, folks. I think I can hear the music. It's time for App Caps. This is the part of the show where we place caps atop our heads to honor our app and or gadget picks of the week. These are the apps and or gadgets we are using now or have used at some time that we think are great and therefore want to share with all of you. I do not have an app cap this week, but our special guest, Dan Moren, does indeed have an app cap and a cap atop his head. Tell us first about the cap, and then tell us about your app pick.
This lovely knit stocking cap here. I know I'd stretched it over my headphones, which I feel a little bad about, but it's pretty good. This was a gift. This is a University of Albany in New York cap It was gifted to me by my cousin who went to University of Albany, and she gave it to me one year. And it's a great hat, and it keeps my head very warm. And it's cold here in New England now, so it is an appropriate time of year to break it out. I will say the only thing that I don't like about this cap is people always assume I went to the University of Albany. I did not. So people are like, oh, you Albany. I was like, I don't. I've been to Albany. That's all I know. I cannot help you in any other fashion here. So, but it's very nice. It's very comfy, and I've had it for many years, and it's holding up very well. So I appreciate that about it. As for my pick, I decided to go with a thematic one as well. It is the holiday season, and if you, like me, found yourself having to exchange gifts in a Secret Santa type secret gift exchange, you may have, or if you are like me, the person who organizes that exchange for their family, you may need the help of an app. And we used to actually draw names out of a hat back in the day, and I think we decided to stop doing that. So my pick is Elfster, which is a service and an app where it can basically arrange gift exchanges for you. It can do all the picking. It can send the emails out so you don't have to nag people. You can create wish lists so that other people who have, ended up with you as their person can look at that wish list and figure out what you might want. One thing I really appreciate about it is that it provides ways for you to specify if there are certain people who should not get other people. So, for example, in my extended family, which I think we got about almost 25 people doing it this year, I always eliminate like spouses. So spouses can't get each other, and then parents and children can't get each other, because we always assume, the parents and the kids and spouses, they'll do all their presents on their own. I don't want to have them end up with each other for our Secret Santa pick. So you can eliminate those for each person, which is really nice. Very granular, very simple to use. Even the folks in my family who are less tech savvy have gotten on board with Elfster.
Nice.
So I like it a lot. We've used it for, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years now. So
oh wow,
it's great too, because once you've done it once, then the following years it's a lot easier to just sort of be like, all right, I'm starting a new one for this year, and I can bring in all the people from last year and add anybody I need to, and mostly people remember how to use it. So I only end up using it for about a month out of the year, but it is pretty crucial when I do.
Wow, that's the big thing that you touched on, which is that the folks in your family that aren't tech savvy are able to use it, and that they don't have an issue with it. That is big, because that is the sort of friction to using any of these services, right?
Absolutely.
Can people make use of it and understand it and know how it works? So very cool that you are able to pull that off. And you know what? I love that your family does that, because it's much, much less stressful than having to figure out getting gifts for everybody in the family.
25. Can you imagine trying to find gifts for 25 other people? Oh my God. Yeah. This simplified. Once our family got beyond a certain size, this is like some aunts and uncles and cousins and all that. Once it got past a certain size, we were like, no, can't buy presents for everybody. Sorry.
Exactly. I agree with you. Alrighty, folks, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode of iOS Today. Of course, you can email us if you have questions, concerns, feedback, shortcuts, corner requests, etc. iOStoday@twit.tv is the email for that. We do record the show live on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So you can head to twit.tv/ you can watch it live on YouTube. That's youtube.com/twit/live to tune in when the show is being recorded, and to subscribe to the show so that it's available to you as soon as our wonderful editor Kevin gets it put together, packaged, and available, is by going to twit.tv/iOS, where you can click a button to subscribe to audio or subscribe to video. There you will see a drop-down menu that lets you choose your podcast provider. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which I don't think is around anymore. I got to get that out of my muscle memory. YouTube, Spotify, all the different places that it exists. That's how you get in touch. Please consider joining the club. You have heard about the recent set of decisions that came around at Twit, and some hard choices that Leo and Lisa had to make in order for us to continue doing the shows. So please do consider joining the club, twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month, $84 a year. You get some great stuff. You get access to every single Twit show ad-free. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show. Special Club Twit events are all there, as well as access to the members-only Discord server, which is a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. Lots of great stuff there. Lots of opportunities to watch the show live, even as it's kind of being set up and taken down, and the next show, is kicking off. And you also get some Club Twit exclusive shows. The Untitled Linux Show, which is, as you might imagine, a show all about Linux. Hands on Windows from Paul Thurrott that covers Windows tips and tricks. Hands on Mac from yours truly that covers Apple tips and tricks. And Home Theater Geeks from Scott Wilkinson that not only covers tips and tricks for the home theater, but also interviews, reviews, and much in between. If that sounds good to you, head to twit.tv/clubtwit to check it out, to sign up, and to have a blast. Dan Moren, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where should they go to do so?
So many places. These days, I'm predominantly active on Mastodon. You can find me at zeppelin.flight/@dmoren. Also a little bit on Blue Sky is at dmoren.com, and Threads is at dmoren, I think. But you can, easiest way to sort of find all my stuff is go to dmoren.com, which is my website. It's got links to all the podcasts I do, including Clockwise with Mike over on the Relay FM network, as well as my writing at various technology sites and my novels. I just came out with a supernatural detective novel called All Souls Lost earlier this year. So that's brand spanking new. You can grab a copy from all the links that are on that site.
Nice. You can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or head to chihuahua.coffee. That's chihuahua.coffee. Kind of hard to see. It's a little chihuahua holding a cup of coffee, and below it says chihuahua.coffee. Anyway, you can head there to find links to the places I'm most active online. Check out Tech News Weekly, which I host on Thursdays here on the network, and Sundays you can watch Ask the Tech Guys, which I co-host with Leo Laporte, where we take your tech questions live on air and do our best to answer them. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of iOS Today. We adore you all. Thank you, Dan Moren, for being here with me this week. I appreciate it. I will see you all very soon. Goodbye. All right.
Should have worn this the whole time. My head's very warm.
Nice.
I can't hear anything, though.
So,
I can.
As before, if I could have you send me some memoji of you via messages, that would be great. Yeah, and we'll use that for the thumbnail. And I think that will take care of it. Good to go otherwise. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, a bunch of game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. Hope to see you there.